Well, I'm going to have to change the intro image too. I see that now.
Well, the one that we had on there before, obviously it's cropped down so it'll fit, but it's actually the photo of me standing in front of that huge blown up photo of Billy inside the Lincoln County Courthouse.
Right.
And I was like, it's a 3-year-old photo. I was like, I got new photos. And plus it's like, you only see like the side of my face. So I was like, I asked Pierre to, load up a new one.
And he did.
Yep, he did. Very clear.
Let me see here. I'm sure, Doss, that this is a much anticipated episode of the Forever West Old Time Radio Hour tonight. We're going to be talking about everybody's favorite speculative Billy photo.
Absolutely. I do realize there's a lot of people out there that know this information. I mean, this has been out for, he found it in 2010, the gentleman who bought it. So 2010, it really hits the world, 2014, 2015. And so a lot of people are aware of this. And again, a subscriber, made a request that we kind of, talk about it, analyze it, whatever. And whoever that subscriber was, I hope by the end of the episode, and everyone else too, by the end of the episode, you are either fully convinced that it is one way or the other. Hopefully if you're on the fence, hopefully we'll kind of push you in, in either direction, because that's what it's all about. I've realized too, and I think you have seen this too, over the years, I have engaged in conversations about the Croquet tintype. And back in 2014, 2015 it was coming out, they were doing a lot of discussions about the weather, right? The way the trees were absent of leaves. There's a lot of things, and we can discuss that a little bit. But I kind of feel like while that stuff is important to its location and what they talked about, it doesn't exactly establish the provenance to either debunk it or, support it. And so while we will do a little bit of that, this whole thing is about just, chewing through the fat. Even if everyone is aware of the story, we will start from the beginning, get a lot of the minor small details out there, get everybody caught back up, because it has been quite a few years. And then we are going to show some legit documentation. We are going to really explore some fun timeline events with Billy and the regulators. And I think by the end of it, I think everyone's going to be really satisfied with at least the episode and everything that we've covered, because we are going to cover both ends, right? Those who are in favor of this photo and have been in favor of it for many years, have done their own research on it. And, we're going to cover just about everything. So that was the point. A lot of people know this. It's a well-known thing, but whether you believe it's him, whether you say, it's not him, we all know that these like YouTube reels with these AI generated voices that just have been springing up everywhere. I mean, I've probably seen 11 of them in the last probably 2 or 3 weeks. You've seen these ones. It always has the same AI voice too. Billy the Kid. It all starts off like that. And it's like, it's the same voice. And I will see the Croquet tintype keep popping up and these little things. And, a man in 2010 bought a tintype, you know what I mean? And then it's like this whole reel. The problem is, again, everything is put out there as if A, it was authenticated. It wasn't. And B, that it's sold for $5 million. Well, you and I absolutely know for a fact that is not true, because we know the gentleman who owns it. In 2023, we were both in Lincoln, New Mexico for Old Lincoln Days. Randy Guajaro, the man who bought the tintype, was there. He pretty much kind of carries the photo with him, I think, at all times, to be honest. At least at that time he was. And that was the year he premiered the big blown up poster size version of it, right? So we've seen the photo. Everyone's well aware. So yeah, let's get cracking, and we'll go through everything and cover a lot of ground. If we can get through it all in one episode, great. If not, we'll do a second. It's been a few years, but if you remember, I did it was like a 5 or 6 post breakdown of the Croquet tintype and all the claims and whatnot. And it's been a couple years, but essentially this is reformatted from those posts to kind of fit into notes. And, it's been re-edited. I've added a few things. I also want to say too, first and foremost, this week's very quick shout out. Don't know if he's listening or not. I would like to give a shout out to a couple people, both historians in our field, Mr. Robert Buckley and Mr. Mark Boardman. Mark Boardman, if everyone knows, is Mark works for the Epitaph, correct?
Yeah,
James.
He works at the Epitaph. He contributes to True West as well.
Right.
But yeah, the Epitaph is his baby.
Right. Okay. And yeah, I know I just saw him on Facebook that he's getting ready to move very close, right, to Arizona. Like he's moving there. Okay. So Mark in 2015 had an article in True West magazine, and it was called The Croquet Kid. And I've got some good portions of their of quotes from Mark's article that I wanted to use because, he had the opportunity, obviously, to get these quotes from certain historians and authors that I would not. And the quotes are great because it covers a lot of stuff. We're also going to cover quite a bit of stuff that, was not featured in the article, or maybe just very shortly, and we're going to expand on some of those things. But his article was that shoe-in for me, and like I said, his article came out in 2015, so it's been 11 years. Okay, so we're going to go through this. All right, 2010, a man named Randy Guajaro, he buys some tintypes at a flea market in Fresno, California. In one of these photos, Guajaro believes that the young man looks like Billy the Kid. Okay. It must be said, and I have seen the photo. It's not hard to do either, even online. The Croquet tintype has no markings whatsoever. No names, no location, no circa date, nothing. Okay. But the more he looked, the more he became convinced he was staring at the most notorious outlaw in history. And I think that's what the driving force with a lot of these photos, right? The power of belief. Right.
Yeah, and what do you think it was that set this apart as that's got to be Billy? Because naturally, it's not a very clear image. It's a small tintype,
right?
And
you have to zoom in to see everybody. Yeah,
I know that there are really high resolution scans out there.
Yeah,
they're not readily available on the internet, and I did see one at one time, but I didn't know if I had permission to share it, so I didn't.
Sure.
But looking at it, I would assume what would tip a person off to think this is Billy is the hat.
Yeah.
There's some small resemblance to the authentic one, some small resemblance.
Yeah.
And of course he's wearing what appears to be a cardigan.
But we all know who the real true Cardigan Kid is.
If you don't, you better.
Bang, bang, bang. Okay. So, but I'm glad you asked because that's a good point. To be honest, I truly believe it was what I saw in it. And I mean that. I think Randy looked at that stance, the way he's leaning. Point. Yeah. I mean, that would do it for me, to tell you the truth, with what you said and the way he's leaning, the smirk on his face. Yeah, I would say the way he's leaning, that would always be a good. Yeah, I think that's what I would see. But I think that Randy just had a lot of real belief. And I from what I understand, he's a big Billy fan and whatnot. So, he knew the tintype, he knew what Billy looked like. And I think that was something that he just couldn't shake, right? He can't shake it. So over the next few years, he's going to take that photo across the Old West field, right? Quite a few historians are going to see this. Men like John Bosenecker, Robert G. McCubbin, They were very professional, but they were forthright, and their opinions were like they're not looking at Billy the Kid, right? They told him the photo has no markings. It has nothing to even connect to Billy or New Mexico. I mean, let alone any proof that it was taken during Billy's time. But Randy was pretty unconvinced by the rejection, and he just kind of continued to show the tintype to as many people as possible. And in a short time, the word starts to spread quickly, and all of the kind of old school heavyweight class of kid historians, and in that this historical community, and we hear this sometimes, right? In sports, whatnot, it's the old guard, right? And I understand that sometimes the old guard can be looked at as gatekeepers, and I sometimes understand, but sometimes I reject that term because they're not. Yeah, I don't feel that they are, and especially when it comes to photos, right? There is a method of how you do this, and so this photo is going to come across a lot of eyes, and those eyes are going to be Frederick Nolan, Mark Lee Gardner, Paul Hutton, Robert M. Utley, the late Drew Gomber, and even Old West appraisers Wes Cowan and Brian LaBelle. And Brian LaBelle is the man who run the Old West auction that sold the tintype for $2.3 million. Okay. So Brian LaBelle has seen that photo very up close, probably held it in his hands, Okay. Mark Lee Gardner, author of To Hell on a Fast Horse. And this came from Mark Boardman's article. Mark Lee Gardner says, without a solid provenance linking a historic photograph to the kid, it could never be anything more than simply a photo of a goofy-looking juvenile who bears a resemblance to one William H. Bonney. Such images are hardly rare, unfortunately. Yeah. Very true. Very true, Mr. Gardner. Okay. So nobody's helping him, right? Randy's got no support from the experts in the field, right? The quote unquote so-called experts, they're not backing him, right? But he continues, right? He keeps going. Okay. Now this needs to be said because I do believe that for anyone who has seen the documentary that we're going to talk about, they do make it's edited in a way. I've seen it at least 6 times, but it is getting a little bit harder to come by. About 2 years ago, Amazon Prime had it for rent. So not even for Prime members, and I paid $3.99, had it for like whatever, 48 hours, 36 hours. And I watched it 3-4 times and took as many notes as possible. And something that needs to be said is that the documentary and stuff does not happen right away, right? They kind of make it seem like that. And that's not true. Okay. So he purchased it in 2010. 4 years later, he is in a collectible store in Clovis, California. And Randy's going to meet a producer named Jeff Aiello. At that time, Aiello mainly dabbled in reality television commercials. He produced such shows as My Family Recipe Rocks and Outside Beyond the Lens. Okay. Aiello became so enthralled and interested in Randy's Billy the Kid discovery that he began researching Billy and the Lincoln County War on his own. Okay. Which is kind of, not always the best thing coming from where you're coming from. If you were a complete, green thumb when it comes to research, that can be a tough nut to crack to get used to. When I first saw that the producer, that they were hiring for this was starting to research, on his own. It's interesting sometimes how people see what they're looking at or what they read. And we're going to see that as it comes up. So by December of 2014, Aiello is going to have communication with someone we know very well, Mr. Steve Cedarwall. Some years ago, Cedarwall made waves with a supposed DNA extraction from the supposed bench that Billy was laid on after he was killed. Cedarwall did agree to research the possible location where the photo could have been taken. Okay, so Mr. Cedarwall is involved. By spring of 2015, Left Field Productions agreed to produce the show, and then it was sold to National Geographic. This is going to attract Academy Award winner Kevin Costner. He signs on as an executive producer and narrator. By summer of 2015, the self-proclaimed facial recognition expert Gibson joined the project. After Gibson, coin collector and appraiser Don Kagan joined to help authenticate the photo. I think we should talk about that real quickly.
Okay.
Why a coin collector and appraiser? Considering what we're dealing with, why a coin collector? I feel it's might have, because Randy had already spent, 3-4 years going around showing this, trying to get maybe people to get motivated by it, I'm guessing. And so I think that a lot of this reaches certain levels and people are like, oh, that sounds interesting and I want to be involved. But I just don't feel like, a coin collector, an appraiser is not the one that you use to help authenticate a turn of the century tintype. That's it's just an interesting choice. And of course you have the facial recognition expert Kent Gibson, and he is responsible, of course, for apparently authenticating numerous Billy the Kid photos from what I've heard. I mean, just about anyone that comes across online, out and open in the internet to the world, Kent Gibson is the one who says it's Billy the Kid every time.
All right.
Right. I mean, he is involved with all of them. We are going to have to cover that facial recognition expert, subject at some point in here. We will cover it because I know there's a lot of fans out there. I am not a fan of it at all.
Yeah, me either.
I understand the way it works. Okay. The way it works is if the FBI is trying to match someone's passport photo with someone who's boarding an international flight and they're a wanted, fugitive, that's kind of a little bit more how that kind of stuff, I think, really truly works in today's world. Right. And those kind of things. It just doesn't apply to turn of the century tintypes. It just doesn't, especially if the men weren't there. Right. Like, it just takes more work than that. Okay. All right. So Gibson is involved. Okay. Billy the Kid, new evidence, airs October 18th, 2015. The show is going to make major claims regarding the tintype. Okay. It is these claims that we are going to cover very thoroughly because they're the only claims that matter. Okay. They're the only ones that matter. When they decided to do this, quite frankly, I think they kind of made it a little, if you know what you're doing, they made it a little too easy, honestly. Okay. All right. Number one, the photo not only included the kid, but also Charlie Beaudry, Tom Folliard, Sally Chisholm, Paulita Maxwell, and Big Jim French. The others were unidentified. Right off the bat, that's a problem. How do you identify Big Jim French when there are no authenticated photos of Big Jim French? And considering that my good pal and historian here, James Townsend, it's been about 3 years since you did that, right? The Jim French Cook gang connection. So the photo that goes around the internet that's very easy to find of supposed regulator Big Jim French, well, the man in that crazy-eyed photo is Jim French, just not our Jim French.
That's right.
And James Townsend here solidified that 100%, no doubt about. Yeah, it's been about 3 years ago that you did that.
Yeah.
So, okay, there's a problem right there, right? Claim number two. Photo was taken during Charlie Beaudry and Manuela's wedding celebration, according to the show. Nobody else, the show. This took place almost a month after the 5-day battle in Lincoln, which occurred between July 14th and July 19th, 1878, also known as the Big Killing. Okay, so so July 19th, McSween's house burns down, McSween dies, that whole situation. Okay. So 1 month after that is what they claim.
If I can pause the claims here, if I don't derail your narrative too far, I want to point out the kind of semi-absurdity and this, and even claiming like, hey, that's Charlie or that's so-and-so,
Right.
because in some cases, especially in the guy who's supposed to be Charlie, you really don't have a clear enough shot to determine. Even I don't think in a high resolution scan. I mean, of course it could be Charlie. It could really be anybody with a mustache at this point.
Right. And leave that up, will you? Because I'm literally, I'm like, that's perfect. Because I'm like 3 sentences away from that.
Right.
So The third claim, photo was taken near a schoolhouse on the ranch owned by the kid's deceased boss, John Henry Tunstall. The ranch was located on the Rio Feliz, approximately 30 miles from Lincoln. Remember, they made all these claims without any identifying marks written on a photograph discovered in Fresno, California. Okay, so Ken Gibson is going to positively identify the man on the horse as Charlie Bowdry or
Good job,
Bowdry,
Grant.
however you like to prefer. So right off the bat, okay, remember, it's been quite a few years, but this comes directly from the show. And I think, just like you asked me, what do you think that belief was for Randy Gaharo when he sees the kid leaning on the croquet mallet, right? This is really the kid because the lean. In this scenario, when you're dealing with facial recognition, I can guarantee you what they're doing is, so we've seen this one. Okay, if you can zoom in just on this supposed Charlie Bowdry, please, because we're going to realize on his face that you can't see anything. Okay, but look at the way his hat is tilted. Look at that. Now, I sent you the regular known photo of Charlie. If you could throw that one up, please, because then this is what I think is really what they're doing. That's how it works, right? And one of those emails, I know I sent a photo, Charlie. Okay, the hat tilt. The hat tilt. I seriously think, and the little faint mustache on the guy on the horse, and it's barely there. I mean, same thing with
absolutely.
the lean.
Could it be Charlie? Of course. It's a guy with a mustache and a leaning hat.
Yeah,
that's
a tilted hat. Because that could never, ever happen unless it was the same person, right? Like, it's just, that to me. But Ken Gibson positively identifies him as Charlie Bowdry. Okay?
Right.
All right. So, there we are. Those are the claims made from the show. Here we go. So one of those first claims in the documentary is that this gathering took place approximately 1 month after the Battle of Lincoln, which ended July 19th, 1878, the death of lawyer Alex McSween, the burning of the McSween home. Billy, Tom, Chavez, and Big Jim French are going to escape out of the burning house over the Bonito River bank and into safety. Now, we all know Sheriff George Pepin and his deputies are going to scour the countryside in search of the regulators at this point. Okay, because I mean, it was an all-out war. Pepin assumed they would be found on the Pecos, supposedly in the neighborhood of the Chisholm Ranch. Okay, they were actually somewhere in the mountains between San Patricio and South Fork. On August 5th, 1878, the regulators emerged at the Mescalero Indian Agency in search of horses. What transpired next was a quick yet chaotic gunfight that would lead to the death of Indian agent Morris Bernstein. Now, this is all very important. So how many of you out there are very aware of the Morris Bernstein situation? If not, you're going to learn about it very quickly. It's well known, well documented. Okay, but this happens, shortly, in a couple of weeks after the Lincoln County War was over and the regulators escaped out of Lincoln. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. Morris Bernstein and Frederick Godfrey were at the issue house giving out supplies when some gunfire began. Morris Bernstein decided he was going to leave the safety of the house. He mounts a horse and gallops right towards the firing. Godfrey said, "I immediately got another horse, and as I left the issue room, I saw him take over the crest of the hill, from behind which the shooting was done, and before I got halfway, I saw the horse had been riderless, pushed until I got to the crest, and got halfway, I saw the horse had been riderless, pushed on until I got to the crest, and I satisfied myself that we were not attacked by Indians. Suddenly a man appeared, a white man, with his gun in his hand and looking alternately at me and the Indian who was pressing him close. He shot at the Indian, and immediately another man appeared and shot in my direction. Godfrey, knowing he'd be killed if he rode ahead, turns back to the Indian agency. Lieutenant Smith and 4 other soldiers were at Godfrey's house. Okay, so Godfrey continues. When we returned, shooting was still going on between the two Indians and the unknown assailants. As soon as they saw me returning with soldiers, the firing ceased and they left, taking with them all the agency animals and leaving 4 of their own horses, saddled and bridled, which got away from them during the fight. After some searching, I found the body of Mr. Bernstein lying on its face with 4 bullets in it. His Winchester rifle, pistol, and cartridges were gone. His pockets were also turned out and contents gone. Okay. Godfrey gave this testimony to Captain Thomas Blair on August 9th, 1878. He also took statements from Dr. Joseph Blazer, interpreter Jose Carrillo, Godfrey's wife, and their daughter Kate. In his report to Colonel Nathan Dudley, based on the testimonies, Thomas Blair concluded the gang numbered at least 19. The Kid, Doc Skurlock, John Middleton, Charlie Beaudry, Jim French, Tom Folliard, Henry Brown, John Scroggins, Stephen Stevens, the Co-Cousins, together with half a dozen Hispanics. Among them were Fernando Herrera and Ignacio Gonzalez. Okay. In the weeks following Bernstein's death, the Kid, Skurlock, Bowdry, Middleton, French, Folliard, and others, they're going to head for the mountains in order to evade the detachment that's going to get sent by pro-Jimmy Dolan Lieutenant Millard F. Goodwin. And I did send you photos of all these guys, and I know who they are by face. So there should be a photo of Godfrey. Millard F. Goodwin. We've got all these guys, so we can see these guys that were involved in this Bernstein. Of course, there's no photo of Bernstein yet that I'm aware of, but so we've got photos of all these guys. So there is Frederick Godfrey right there. He was the other Indian agent who was the one who found Morris Bernstein's dead body. Okay. There is pro-Dolan Lieutenant Millard F. Goodwin. And Goodwin did a lot of BS during Lincoln County War on Dolan's behalf. So there he is. Okay. And that's Jake Owen, but that's we're not quite there yet, but we're close. All right. Oh, what you got?
Through all kinds of, who's this guy?
That's John Selman.
That's
okay.
Right.
All right. So we're good there. Okay. So those are the guys involved in that now. Okay. So they're trying to invade the detachment by Millard F. Goodwin on August 13th. Tunstall loyalist Sam Corbett wrote a letter to John Partridge Tunstall in London, England, updating him on the conditions of Lincoln County. Okay, this is very important. In one part of the letter, Corbett mentioned Tunstall's ranch on the Felice. Corbett stated, "Since McSween was killed, everything has been quiet in town, but Pepin is liable to come in any day. Bernstein was killed at the Indian Agency on the 5 instant Murphyite. The cattle are still on the Felice, and I am at a loss to know what to do with them, for I am satisfied when Pepin's posse leaves the country, they will take them."
Yeah.
Okay? All right, so remember that. Now remember, a month after, and I'm even giving the benefit of the doubt by counting August 14th all the way through the 19th, right? 1 whole month. We could even go through September. It wouldn't matter because they claimed in the show that this photo was taken at this event, at the wedding celebration, 1 month after the end of the Lincoln County War. And they stated in the show specifically July 19th, 1878. Okay. So now we're on Sunday, August 18th. Right about the time the supposed wedding celebration in the tintype took place, the hardcore remnants of Pepin's posse, which included John Kinney, Jake Owen, Jesse Evans, Jim McDaniels, John Collins, and Bob Speaks, they joined forces with John Selman and his brother Tom, and they brazenly committed a string of crimes up and down the Pecos. They rode up to the Felice and stole Tunstall's cattle, which were only being guarded by Dutch Martin Martz. Okay, he was another Tunstall employee. Okay, they don't talk about him much, but he's mentioned a few times in a few books, but very, very little. But he was another Tunstall employee like Corbett was. And there's John Selman. And John Selman was a bad dude for a long time. And then many years later, he is going to shoot and kill John Wesley Hardin.
Yeah.
So that is that John Selman.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, on this whole Felice thing, right? In this time frame. Now, on August 22nd, 1878, Mr. Godfrey Goss advised Tunstall's father of the theft in a letter. The thieves took last Sunday the herd of cows, about 200 in number, worth perhaps $2,500, the last of the property belonging to your son's estate, which could have been present turned into ready money. The thieves took one man, who was Dutch Martin Martz, I'm saying that, who with me was taking care of the cow herd along with them. Okay, so the one man that was there left at the Tunstall ranch on the Felice guarding the cattle, they kidnapped him. Okay, so where are the other regulators, right?
And I'd be happy to go after Dutch Martin, Mr. Tunstall, if you just send me $500.
Exactly. Okay, so we have lots of support of the cattle being taken, just like Sam Corbett, suspected it would. And okay, so while supposedly the Croquet group is enjoying a wedding celebration at Tunstall's ranch on the Felice, a herd of outlaws stole all of Tunstall's cattle and then kidnapped the Tunstall employee that was guarding them. Would this have happened if the regulators were there? No. So
which is where this photo was said to have been taken, right? Where they
exactly.
stole the
yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of kids hanging around Tunstall's ranch.
Right. We'll talk about that too. That should be another big clue. Lots of kids and no weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got croquet mallets, but no weapons. Okay. Moving right along. So where were the regulators? They were in Fort Sumner, almost 200 miles away from Tunstall's ranch on the Felice, which is where the croquet celebration was claimed to have taken place. After the killing of Bernstein, even if it wasn't the regulators who actually killed him, they were held accountable. So Colonel Nathan Dudley sends out a pursuit detachment led by Goodwin, and the regulators exited the mountains and traveled up to the Pecos to the Bosque Grande. How do you say that? Bosque Grande, right? Bosque Grande? Bosque Grande. Okay.
Bosque.
They arrived on August 13th, 1878. Once there, they found Jim and Pitzer Chisholm, the brothers of John. John was in St. Louis at the time, and the two brothers felt it was time to escape the war zone in Lincoln County. They were moving their families and a large herd of cattle north all the way to the Texas Panhandle. Sally Chisholm recorded Billy's arrival in her diary entry August 13th, 1878, and that Billy gave her an Indian tobacco sack. Okay, so there's one piece of documentation putting the regulators 200 miles, maybe just a little bit more. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There is a well-known photo that is Sally Chisholm around the age of 16 years old and her brothers Walter and William, which for many years, that photo was also, it goes around the internet and it gets attached to these weird like Facebook posts and these groups, and they'll make claims. You're like, what do you mean? I thought everyone knew that was Sally Chisholm. I've heard some weird things like that supposedly like Billy is one of the brothers standing behind her.
Well, it says like, right here. Doesn't that say Willie right there? That's
Billy
it does. The kid. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we and everything about Sally's diary entry, again, none of this is new information. It's not, right? It's in just about every Billy the Kid book imaginable. Okay. Everybody wants to know, Sally Chisholm's diary has, for many years, has been kept at the Artesia Historical Arts Museum and Art Center. That's where her diary is kept. Okay.
And this is Sally right here.
That is the supposed Sally Chisholm, I believe. Yes, sir. Okay.
I don't see it. I personally don't see that.
No, like I don't either. Okay. So Billy and the regulators were being hunted by troops and Pepin's posse. They simply just blended with the wagons, horses, and cattle all the way to Fort Sumner. They arrived on August 18th, 1878. On August 22nd, Sally would record another diary entry, 2 candy hearts given to me by Willie Bonney. Now, I've always been curious about something really there, not a detail that helps with the photo or nothing, but the Willie Bonney. Now, have you ever seen Sally's diary entries, like photocopies. The
Yes.
writing is really tough
Yeah.
in some
Yeah.
sections. I think I remember the Bonnie being clear to me. Like you can tell it was Bonnie, but it's the Willie part that did she really spell Willie? Because when I'm looking at it, I can't tell if it's Willie or if it's just William and it's just been like faded out, or she shortened it like W-I-L. I'm not, or W-I-L-M. But when you look at it, it does kind of look like she called him Willie.
Right. It could have been. I mean, and that could have been just something. He was known to be very courteous and polite towards women and friendly, and if he introduced himself as William Bonnie, she could have just started calling him Willie.
True,
because maybe that's what she called one of her brothers Willie.
Yeah, that's true too. Well, William and Walter.
Iowa Joe says, "Man, I still think the guy pointing has some of the characteristics of Dick Brewer."
Yeah, except Dick Brewer was a lot bigger than that, though.
He would have been dead by this time anyway.
Yes, sir. So there's that.
So for that,
unfortunately,
it would have had to be taken before March of 1878.
Yep, absolutely. And Dick died April 4th?
Yeah,
at Blazers Mill. So, yeah, okay. August 30th, 1878. They were still there too. Regulator John Middleton writes the letter to Robert Wiedemann, who was still in La Masia at the time. Middleton said, in part, "There is nothing can be done by your coming here. The Seven Rivers outfit has stolen your cattle. They are at the Black River now. If we don't get Tunstall's cattle, we will get more in their place." Okay? So again, another supporting documentation from an actual regulator talking about Tunstall's cattle being stolen about the time that the supposed photo is being taken. Okay? The regulators are going to make good on Middleton's last sentence too. On September 5th or 6th, depending on the source, the regulators raided the Fritz Ranch below Lincoln. They stole 15 horses and approximately 150 head of cattle. Approximately 1 week later or so, Charlie Beaudry and Doc Scurlock abandoned their farms on the Rio Doso, and they moved lock, stock, and barrel to Fort Sumner, where they took jobs working for Mr. Pete Maxwell.
Yeah. Chris wants to know, has anyone published Sally's diary? And I bought a copy on Kindle a while back for pretty cheap.
Yes. Yeah. So you can, yes, sir. You can actually purchase it. Yeah, James is right. But have you noticed a couple times, if you do search it, depending on the availability, I've actually come across a couple times where it gives me a link, right? And I'm like, oh, sweet. And then I click on the image of it, and then it goes and it says not available. Right. You know what I mean? It's one of those really kind of hard ones to find. But yes, it's been a few years. All I remember is when I first saw it, my eyes hurt after 10 minutes. Yeah. It's hard to kind of digest. But
John wants to know, could this have been taken before the war? And theoretically, given the hypothesis that this is Billy and the regulators, and if we're not speaking directly to the timeline placement of the documentary, then we could consider that. But I mean, then it just goes back to the fact that there's nothing to link this to anybody.
No, that's the thing, So a few minutes ago, you had that photo up of Jake Owen.
Yes. Would you like that?
So Jake Owen, one of the Seven Rivers outlaw, who was there and assisted in the stealing of Tunstall's cattle on August 18th, 1878. And I did a very fun presentation on Jake Owen.
Yeah.
For the Roswell Historical Society. That was pretty fun.
Carlsbad, right?
Carlsbad, I'm sorry. I get those confused a lot.
Same place.
So Jake Owen, and then you got John Selman, that other photo. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Selman was the leader of that whole gang. So yeah, he basically picked up as it was put, the remnants of Pepin's posse from the Lincoln County War, right? Jesse, Jim McDaniels, all those guys, John Kinney, and they start riding with Selman, who was, I don't know, man, he was going through some shit at the time because, they were accused of setting fire to Frank Coe's ranch. or
Yeah.
farm. Yeah, not the ranch that survived up until today. That big
I
one. No,
mean,
he had another farm and they burned it. And then they were
they
also
assaulted women. They shot.
yes, yeah, they
They shot
raped
field
somebody.
hands. They shot field hands working in the farm, like working
Yeah,
on the land. They were horrible. They were just terrible. And I
yeah,
think, a lot of the acts, a lot of the things they did were misattributed to Bonnie and the regulators
yes, it
here and
was.
there.
Yeah, they did get. Unfortunately, they did get accused of some of those things. Yeah.
And now Dudley, in his correspondence, Dudley would call them the wrestlers. But obviously, I feel like it's obvious he meant the rustlers.
Right. Yeah, I remember
And
seeing that in print, and you're like, wait, what?
yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, I think it caused people to, anytime they heard of cattle rustlers, they thought they were part of this rustlers gang,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so all of this going on simultaneously, it makes sense. And the way newspaper articles like to, dramatize things and, make it
Yeah.
very sensationalist type. And, and you can find quite a few articles that are covering John Selman and his gang and what they're doing up and down the Pecos. Yeah,
Oh,
they
yeah.
were doing some real crazy stuff. So, okay, moving on, because to me that's what I've got on that. It puts them in a completely different place at the time. Now, remember when someone had just asked, is it possible it could have been taken beforehand? Who knows? I mean, there's no markings on the photo for us to tell. That's when you have to do things like look at their clothing, look at the building, right? Look at the trees and try to do things like that. But unfortunately, it won't get us where we need to go.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So it's really just about focusing on the claims. They are the ones who made that claim that that's when the photo was taken, right? And
Yeah.
they said that based on their research. So that's why those claims are important, right? Remember, we're not the ones who brought this photo to the world. They did. They're the ones that need to support it properly, not us. It's our
Right.
job to be like, well, no, we have complete documentation that says complete opposite, right? That's what it's there for. Okay. The next major claim of the documentary was that the photo was taken in front of a schoolhouse at Tunstall's Ranch on the Felice, situated approximately 30 miles south of Lincoln. Tunstall moved onto this property in 1876 through the Desert Land Act. Tunstall was a pretty well documented man. We have his detailed account book, personal letters, his financial motives and intentions for Lincoln County, I think, were pretty clear, right? I think we all know that. And at this point, if you're not, a little hazy on it, Tunstall was just as greedy as Dolan and Riley Murphy. He was.
Yeah.
There was so much more to that and what his intentions were and the things that he was doing, right? But that being said, he was 24 years old when he was killed, single, no children. There was no need to build a schoolhouse, nor did he plan to. And none of his ranchers or regulators at that time had children of their own at that time, right? So again, going off of the time frame that they said, in the Lincoln County War, that 5-day battle, that's the time frame they put it in, 1 month after. So I'm still doing the whole 5 days and saying in that week is when they're saying that's when it happened, right? So that was the point of making sure that we read Sally's diary entry, Middleton's letter, Corbett's letter, right? That identifies everything that was already being supported about the cattle being taken, okay? And supporting the fact that Tunstall's Ranch and the Fleas, after his death and Lincoln County War, it was in complete limbo, right? They weren't hanging out there all the time. That wasn't the case at all. So,
Yeah, that's true.
okay. So no children. None of the regulators have kids at the time. Okay. In 2015, researcher, historian, we met Eddie Lanham, remember, in Lincoln?
Yeah.
2023. Yeah.
Actually,
so
I don't remember meeting Eddie.
You don't?
I didn't know that. No.
That's right. You told me later you didn't know it was Eddie until after he walked away. Right. Yeah, he came up to the coalition table, and he came up there with Pamela Fuller Potter.
Yeah.
They both work at Wild West History Association. They came right up to the table and talked to us, and so we met him. that year. It's okay.
And then they walked away, and I was like, "Who were they?"
Yeah, I was like, that's
I
Eddie
guess,
Lanham from,
yeah. I don't have any recollection of that. So that's wild.
of course. All right. Now Eddie's really nice. Okay, so Eddie Lanham is going to discover an 1883 document from the Bureau of Land Management, the government land office. It's a full survey of that land. It was very thorough. Apparently, even showed a tent. Okay, there were no structures or ruins on that specific lot in that township. And this would have been about 5 years after the Croquet tintype was supposedly taken. Okay. His research was featured in the True West article titled The Croquet Kid by Mark Boardman. Okay. So that's where all that information is there. And you can also, if I wouldn't say contact Eddie if you were curious, but I do believe they posted quite a bit about that at the time, and most of it made it into Mark Boardman's article.
It sounds like Boardman's article is very thorough and worth a read. I haven't read it.
Yeah, it's very thorough. Yeah, like I said, it's it's 11 years old at this point, and it came out right, literally, I think within a few months or something after the documentary came out. It was because he's covering so many things about the documentary very specifically in that article. Yeah, and Eddie's whole stuff about the Bureau of Land Management is in there.
I just got to be honest and say the Croquet Photo has never been one of my areas of devoted research. It's just not something that's really
right
grabbed my attention, so I haven't spent a lot of time on it. So just to explain why I haven't read Boardman's article on it.
Yeah, and then plus, man, we read so much stuff throughout just any given week that the next week, if someone were to ask me, remember that article? I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I wish I remembered, but he's a good man and thorough.
Mark Boardman.
Okay, and so the next part that we have, if anybody is just familiar with Robert Casey and the Casey family. Okay. The Casey family claimed that land on the Rio Feliz before Robert Casey was murdered in 1875. Robert built a dugout on that property, and which would later be used as a choza and occupied by Billy and the regulators. Lily Casey Klasner, daughter of Robert Casey, kept very well descriptive and detailed documentation, both about the Feliz property and the Casey ranch on the Hondo. Okay. There was no schoolhouse, and the Casey children actually received their education inside their home, and their teacher was none other than Ash Upson.
Ash Upson, that's right.
Right? The co-author of the co-ghost author of The Authentic Life of Billy the Kid. So that Ash Upson, yes, and that comes from Willie Casey Klasner. Okay?
And when would that have been? That's pre-Tunstall, right? Or
yeah, they had it in 1875. He comes along a year later after Robert Casey's murder. Yeah, and they were still, remember they were still like pretty much kind of living on the area in a way, and they had that incident with the cattle. Yeah, she tried to take all that cattle that technically belonged to Tunstall. Yeah, and then he sent that posse, Middleton, a bunch of guys went down and caught her before she got across the border into Texas with the cattle. You remember that?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So that's, same scenario, but just 1878 when Tunstall gets there. Yeah. So she had a good portion of little history on that land too before Tunstall got there. And then after he got there, same thing, because she had all those issues with the cattle. And that's really well documented too. So, okay. Now, the schoolhouse in the Croquet Photo is made of wood. All structures at the Casey Ranch on the Hondo were made of rock and adobe mortar. Okay. And it's I think at the time too, it's, there was also talks about timber shortages and, in New Mexico for a while and those kind of talks. But again, when you have firsthand documentation from, someone who lived in that, property, it's kind of hard to ignore, especially, all the things. If you have Lily Casey Klasner's book, My Girlhood Amongst Outlaws, it details quite a bit. Lily was engaged to Bob Ollinger when he was killed by Billy. So Lily has got a lot to say about a lot of things, but like we've encountered many times, some stuff she says can be easily kind of debunked, right? She will say that someone was at a certain location at a certain time when in regards to Billy, and we'd be like, yeah, but we know now that that part's not exactly true, right? But based on memories, I still think it's a really important book that anyone who's interested in the Lincoln County War and the people that were involved in the Seven Rivers area, the Klasner book is really good. It's really good.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
She does not like Billy.
No, she does not. She says quite a few negative things about Mr. Billy the Kid. Okay. So Tunstall's ranch on the Felice was in limbo after his death, and clear documentation is going to place the regulators in and near Fort Sumner. Now, by 1880, James J. Dolan is going to own that property. And as everyone should know, he would own the Tunstall store as well. Now, also real quickly, and just as if anyone hasn't seen this, it's one of my favorite photos when it comes to this historical world. Okay. Especially when it comes to Billy and the LCW. If you would kindly, I sent that email, that Tunstall store photo.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
this is one of, if not the earliest photo of the Tunstall store. All the ones that you can see online, like just Googling Tunstall store, Lincoln, New Mexico. So many of them, right? But most of them are going to start in the 1930s. A lot of them, if you look closely, there are vehicles in front of the Tunstall store. Right? There's even a gas pump in one of the photos of the Tunstall store. This is when James J. Dolan took over and he owned the Tunstall store. Okay. And he does quite a bit. He does work on the porch, on the roof. And if you zoom in, Mr. James, on the sign right above on top there you see it. James J. Dolan. And that is the Tunstall store.
Yeah.
And the little girl, which I think has always been a real cool detail, the little girl in the white dress outside the wagon right here, that is Jimmy Dolan's daughter, Bessie.
Lincoln looks like a bustling, peaceful place after they took care of McSween and Tunstall.
I was going to say, right? It's probably one of the pictures where it looks the nicest too.
Yeah. In their eyes, I'm sure that's how they saw it, like now we
absolutely.
can do business our way.
I honestly think even it's a black and white photo, obviously, because of the time frame, but man, that work looks like it was done very close to that photo to me. It looks brand new.
Yeah, the awnings and everything.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So by 1891, Dolan is going to, remember, he is going to take over. He owns that property on the Felice now, along with the Tunstall store. Okay. So we're clear on that. By 1891, Dolan built a 6-room adobe house within the main section of what would become the Felice district. This ranch on the Rio Felice became his home. He named it the Flying H Ranch, and it still exists today. On May 1st, 1888, Dolan filed a land claim under the Felice Cattle Company, along with his partners, Jacob Billy Matthews, Joseph Alexander LaRue, John Dolan, and his wife, Caroline Fritz Dolan. When Jimmy Dolan died in February of 1898, the partnership remained with the Felice Cattle Company until it was sold to the A.C. Hendricks family from Lubbock, Texas in 1929. Now, if you have the documentation I sent, this is one that I can almost, I've had this for a while. It's that documentation that says Felice Land and Cattle Company. It's an abstract title that I said this is a kind of like a confirmation and correlation of all of the documentation for the Felice Land Cattle Company.
Well, I have the abstract title. I don't think that's what you're looking for, is it?
Yeah. So we can zoom out here. There should be a second part. I sent it in the same email. Okay. So there you see.
Would it be this?
There you go. So it's small, right? But if you zoom in, and we can always post this in a post on YouTube if we need to, but all of the people that we just mentioned, right? All his partners, these are all of the dates.
Wow.
Prices, everything that they did on that property.
My
Okay.
goodness.
Yeah. So
You've got
Dolan, Caroline
Dolan.
Fritz Dolan. Yep.
Yep.
Jacob Billy Matthews, Joseph Alexander LaRue, and John
LaRue.
Dolan.
Yep.
Yep. They're all there. Okay.
Emil
So they
Fritz.
sell it, right? Jimmy Dolan dies in February of 1898. Partnership remains as the Felice Cattle Company, but they are going to sell it to A.C. Hendricks and his family from Lubbock, Texas in 1929. And that's where we're at. Where are we at with time? Oh, all right.
Oh boy.
So, yeah, we've been moving right along. Okay. So AC Hendricks had been in the telephone business for years, and he helped with lines and exchanges in Oklahoma, Texas, and eastern New Mexico. After a career in the telephone industry, AC decided to be a rancher. And him and his wife Mildred and their son Clement and Clement's wife Pearl occupied the ranch. And the Hendricks family actually had to repair many fences and had to irrigate the land into the early 1930s. Okay. Now, the only schoolhouse built in the Felice district was opened October 1st, 1935, and it was in use until 1953. After that, it was used to bunk the hired help and eventually became the home of the grandson of Clement and Pearl Hendricks. Now, on August 1st, 1988, the Flying H Ranch filed with the National Historic Registry for the state of New Mexico. The registry provided a sketch map of the Felice district along with documents from the Felice Cattle Company. Okay, there it is. So the Felice Ranch that Tunstall owned, that all this apparently, the photograph was taken. Dolan owns it by 1880. It becomes a historical landmark for the state of New Mexico. And there's the registry. It has the date, everything. Okay. Now, the other part of that I sent you is the sketch that they provided. And there's a little legend and shows you all the buildings at that time that were on that entire property, the whole Felice district. It tells you how many miles they are a part of everything. So as soon as you find that, have that, we're pretty much going to solve this. Okay, there should be one other. There's like a bunch of sketches and stuff.
Okay, I'm looking now.
Remember, they should hopefully all be in order. I just kept sending them in the way that they would come in order.
Right. Oh man. Let's see.
Okay. If that's one of the ones you didn't download, then that's not good. Because we need that one big time. Like you would not believe.
I'll show you. Give me 1 second to share this other portion of my screen. We'll take the viewers backstage here. Let me see. There's an email with Jake Owen, with Selman, with Sally Chisholm, and then these historical applications.
Yeah, they should be with the historical applications. If not, then it made it on to the next email after that.
Yeah, okay. Let me check the next one after that.
No. I know I sent it.
No. Let's see.
Are you serious?
Yeah, can you describe it? Can you paint a picture with words?
No. This sucks. This really sucks. We need to find it.
Do you want to start part 2 with the sketch?
A whole week of waiting, man. That sucks.
Yeah,
that sucks.
Well,
you got to find it. You got to find it.
Give me 1 second.
I know I sent it to you. Hold on. We're gonna fix this while we're online. Sorry, everyone, but this is way too important that I don't know how this usually doesn't happen. So,
well, you can address. Can you see Chris's question regarding
I can't see it
Fort
at all.
Sumner, regarding Pete Maxwell's big house? Was it located at the back of the village with the Pecos River behind it in the distance?
Right off the top of my head, I don't know. I don't know. That's not in my mind right now. Sorry. Yeah. I don't know.
Pierre suggests, could you resend it?
Yeah, I've got to back out of here real quick and get in there. See. I know it's in here.
The one crucial sketch that I dropped off here. Let's see. So I've got 1, 2, 3 emails. And then let's see this one. It's not that one. Pierre, it's good to see you on here though, bud. Let's see. No, it's not in any of these 3 emails. And then there's the Tunstall store one. So let's see. Unless there was one. Yeah, I know if you could resend it, that would work. In the meantime, while you're looking, I do have some things I pulled from some discussion.
Yeah, damn it, dude. This sucks. Now, yeah, I know where it is, but I'm gonna have to go back in another way and find it. So
Well,
go ahead.
fine.
Go ahead.
I do want to say that Susan Stevenson and Gary Jones posted in the Cold West group back in like 2018.
Right.
And they were talking about the dating and the possible timeline for this photo, and said Sally and her dad arrived at Bosque Ranch on July 31st, 1878. Only 20 miles from Fort Sumner, stayed 15 days and continued to Fort Sumner, which is 200 miles north of the Croquet Photo, which she has been identified as being in. August 22nd, Billy gave her the candy at Sumner, like you were saying earlier, Doss. September 1st, Scurlock and Beaudry moved to Sumner. The regulators stole Fritz cattle near Lincoln, 150 miles from Sumner, on September 6th. September 11th was the start of Sally's cattle drive to Texas. So Gary says the trees had no leaves and the regulators were active in April, May of 1878. So I know Susan, last I talked to her about it, was an advocate of the photo, and her father Gary as well. They seem to be squared away on the dates of it, but they think it's still plausible that would have been the case. And I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to give voice to the folks who think it's legit as well. There's another post that says, let's see, David Turk traced the Beaudry family to Fresno, where the picture was found. It was that family member that rented the storage room. He passes on, the rent is not paid and the items are sold. The people that bought the items were the ones that sold it to Randy. So there's that Beaudry connection.
Right, which I've never seen any actual proof of, and that information was not included in the actual Billy the Kid New Evidence. They somehow discovered it after the documentary was aired.
Gotcha.
So that was like, okay, I sent it, my friend. New email. It's a sketch. It's probably going to be in the long direction, but it's still the sketch. And you're right. Somehow I didn't make it in the email, but I just sent it.
I will download that right now. I will open it. I will rotate it, and we
will
be in business.
Okay, so back where I was saying, August 1st, 1988, Flying H Ranch files National Historic Registry of State of Mexico. They provided a sketch map of the entire Feliz district, and it's got everything at the time. Okay, everything we think of, and we're going to do 2 things here, and then we will stop. Bingo. There we go. That comes from the National Historic Registry for the state of New Mexico. If you zoom in the bottom left corner right there, James, the legend is going to say schoolhouse number 10. Okay.
Gotcha. Yep.
So down there in that corner, it says 10. There's the schoolhouse. And then number 11, right next to the left of it, in a distance of about, let's say 10 miles or so, John H. Tunstall House. Right. Okay. Now look at everyone see this where it says number 10. That's the schoolhouse. Now you notice a hillside. Look at that line that goes right up behind it. That is a hillside. Yes, sir. Now, James, the other 2 photos we need are the one of Randy Guajaro and his wife standing in front of the schoolhouse that they believe is the one in the tintype.
Yeah, you never sent me that one, Doss. I'm just playing with you.
Dude, I'm gonna crawl through here and bang, bang, bang. Okay.
Oh, bang, bang, bang. Big casino, little casino.
Little casino.
Here we go.
Okay, there you go. Now, They're holding his blown up version, one of his blown up versions of the croquet tintype in his hand. Okay. They were helped with some, New Mexico locals. We talked about Steve and some other people and led them to this schoolhouse. Okay. This is the schoolhouse that they claimed is the one that's in the photo. In reality, that schoolhouse behind them is the one that opened October 1st, 1935. Okay. Now, if you look at that photo, you see the building, and you look at that horizon, right? Look at the hillside. Now, James, if you would put up the vintage photo of the Flying H School from 1935.
Go around to it. And so that's Tunstall's land, huh?
Yeah, that was part of it. Yeah, that was the Felice district. And there you go. There it is.
Nice.
Wasn't built until October 1st, 1935. Yes, and there has been work, there was work done on it because, like it said, it became the home of A.C. Hendricks' grandson. So it was in use till 1953. So is there a way, real quickly, can we put the Randy Guajaro and his wife photo side by side with that vintage photo? Yes. I know in a Facebook post, it's really easy to do, and that's like a really cool way. But when we line these up, I think it's a great way to end the episode.
Bear with me here 1 second.
Sure. I didn't know if you could or not. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing the StreamYard Live thing. I don't know what they allow and what they don't.
I just have to open another window. But,
okay.
You want the old picture of the building and then the Randy picture, right?
Yeah, of them standing in front of the schoolhouse. If we look at those side by side, I think it's the perfect way to end the episode.
Sure, absolutely. Let's see here. Okay.
But I hadn't even thought about whether or not, you could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can do it. Let's see. Entire screen. Boom. Yeah, you'll see some menu tool buttons and stuff, but you'll get the gist. There you go. How's that look?
Okay. Now, obviously, the photos are a little bit different because of the distance, right? Obviously. But that is the same schoolhouse, and that is the same horizon and hillside. The only difference is the tree. But that is the same building. Did not get built and opened until October 1st, 1935. Okay. So we've covered a lot of stuff. A lot of it is, well documented Billy the Kid timeline stuff, but that's what's important. That is, how you determine true provenance or whether or not it's not true provenance. You know what I mean? So far, at this point, right? We have supposedly a photo taken of a wedding celebration of men that weren't there and a building that wasn't built until October 1935. Right? But they believe that's the building that is in. But if you look at the croquet tintype at any time online, okay? And if you're looking at the schoolhouse photo, the one that they're standing in front of, the more current photo where they're holding the tintype, you can easily look at those two buildings. You can tell they are not the same at all. And that's another detail that I've heard a lot of people, well, but a lot of maintenance could have gone into the house and they could have done this, but the structure's completely different. And again, not made, the wood difference and all that stuff. So, and then there's the hillside, and then in the croquet tintype itself, I know you had it up there, but anybody who's seen this, which almost everyone has at this point, you notice that there are wagon tracks. There is a wagon track road that goes directly in front of that schoolhouse.
Yeah.
Okay. It's really clear. And as you and I realized in New Mexico in 2023, those wagon trails, they stay, don't they?
They sure do stay.
They sure do stay.
A great experience.
Yeah, and that was fantastic being at the Great House, ranch and tavern area. Yeah, but we saw that. Yeah,
I think Colin is real up to speed on this topic, and I wanted to show this, and I'd like to get Colin's feedback on it. because I found it on the Cold West site and I thought, hey, that's a pretty neat, at least it's well done visual effects wise, way of
Right.
lining up the photos. Now, I think we can all agree that the building is not the same, but what are the chances, Colin, Doss, anybody else, that the landscape is a match for this photo? Because, the way that the visuals are presented here,
Yeah.
it looks like it lines up pretty well. Do we think, I know you've just said the bit about the wagon road and there not being no sign of a wagon road there. Do we think that the landscape lines up well? Like, could this be a match?
Absolutely not. That's
Yeah,
my
you don't
opinion
think so?
based on the fact that the building doesn't exist and everything that we just talked about as far as, the police, the document, and it makes more sense that the buildings, right? 1883, Bureau of Land Management, no buildings, ruins there. There's a tent, right? But then what makes more sense is that the buildings begin to increase when Dolan, starts building that whole district. And what happens? Families become there. Children become, residents, and you just kind of put all that stuff together. But to me, the 100% proof is the fact that that building wasn't built until 1935.
Mhm.
But if you watch the show, I mean, it all comes from the show. They believe that they found the schoolhouse, and in the documentary, that's what they do. And they're saying that that is the building. Now, of course, I don't know if anybody knows this, but not too long after the episode of that documentary or reality show, whatever, was aired, the producers, especially Jeff Aiello, he did a little backtracking, and Corey Recco is, to me, is one of the masters when it comes to photo identifications and
He's done
how
a lot of
you.
good work on this one.
Yeah, he absolutely has, and he's really been a big advocate for this as well, and he's done his own work on it, and so I just kind of feel that like that schoolhouse photo to me is a complete, solidified documentation that is, can't place the building there. I mean, if they say the building is that building, then, you know, I don't know. But I mean, also the sketch from the National Historic Registry form.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, So I understand, and I will tell you that the way that you just presented that photo, the way it's presented, I could look at it and go, I could see why someone did it that way. But by doing it that way and overlapping, to me, it takes away the effect of looking at other things behind it.
Well, it's like Colin said, the foreshortening is off on that. He said they're
Yeah.
just lining up two lines, but the distances are skewed. So,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, maybe that's definitely one way of seeing it. John says
Yeah.
the documentary has just caused problems. And I
Yeah.
guess the
I agree.
rebuttal to the argument that, well, even though that's not the house that's in the picture, could it have been a building that was on that same site prior to that new one being built in 1930s or whatever, to which there was the survey previously referred to
Yeah.
that was very specific. I mean, if there was even a foundation for
Yes.
a building at that spot, it would have been there, you would
It would
think.
have been there. And that was 5 years after the photo was supposedly taken.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So again, it's just the documentation. That's what we do. We're historians, we're researchers. I mean, yeah, talking about the lack of leaves and the wagon road and everything, those are all important details, absolutely. But to me, of course, that's my opinion, because of course I researched a lot of this myself, and we still have more that weren't able to cover. We still have one more claim, and that's the claim of the actual wedding celebration of Charlie and Manuela. And
Mhm.
there's a whole bunch of information that I think a lot of people are not aware of when it comes to Charlie's wife, Manuela. A couple years back, some
Eddie
researchers,
Lanham,
people we
once
know,
again.
yeah, yeah, they debunked apparently well-known fact to a lot of people that
Yeah.
were involved in Billy the Kid research and got interested in Lincoln County War. And one of those details is that Charlie Beaudry was married to Manuel Herrera. Okay. And that would make him and Doc in-laws, right? Because Doc married the other Herrera.
Yeah.
Well, what if we tell you when we come back next week that that's not true at all? And the woman, this entire time that everyone thought Charlie was married to, was not his real wife. So We've got one more claim to cover, and we probably will be able to fit it in a much smaller time frame and we can go over conclusions and get some more thoughts. We've got some great quotes from some people in the field that were for the photo and ones that are against the photo.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I hope that we, with the little photo incident, that little screw up there. I wish I would have double checked and realized that I hadn't sent it in the email. I don't know why it didn't get sent, but we covered a lot of ground in that. And I know it's hard because you got to visualize a lot of it. But again, all the stuff, Sally Chisholm stuff, Billy being documented with them, everything, the Fritz Ranch raid. I mean, everything. This has all been documented for years and years and years. Right? This is not new information. I think that's why it was unfortunate that the documentary made the claims that it made. Like I said at the very beginning, in a way, it almost made it a little too easy. In a way, because it's like when you read these accounts of people saying, "Yeah, Billy was at my house in 1925. Billy used to come over and eat biscuits all the time in 1880." Right? But then there's some accounts where they'll be too specific. And while you think that might be a good detail, but then you realize, well, they're giving you a time frame when he literally was locked up in the Santa Fe jail, awaiting trial. There are times where you literally run into that. And you're like, well, no, he wasn't making biscuits at your house, whatever, because he was there. And that happens a lot where you just have to know the time frame and be able to know, wait a minute, they were documented this date. But I mean, after the killing of Bernstein, I mean, they weren't just popping out in the open for everyone to see them. They were hiding. I mean, that was the point, right? Everybody was after them. They did not just escape the burning house and then, Dudley and everybody forgot about it. Not at all.
It certainly seems a weird time in the narrative to be having school on Tunstall's ranch. And I mean, it even looks like over here somebody's put up a swing. I mean, it's well established. It's well established. There's kids running around, and it's like,
sure,
what a weird time to be playing croquet and having school and
right,
all this stuff in the middle of some very contentious events.
And I've always wondered why, just in general, why would there be any belief at all to Billy and men like the Regulators? If you have this thought process that they're all just good guys, and they just maybe that might be right for some of them. Like I think the Coes definitely fall into that, but some of them were real dangerous men, and people like Charlie and Doc and Chavez had all got into their own trouble with killing people way before this. Okay, and I think that belief that, again, like I said, in the time frame that they would be playing croquet at all. Now, I mentioned in the post the other day we would cover something very specific, but all it is a Las Vegas Gazette news article from August 1878. Frank Chapman's store is selling croquet mallets. That's the advertisement. Now, that was discovered by whoever, but it was included in Mark Boardman's article, that one little bit. It might have been Steve, actually. It might have been Cedarwall that found that. And again, for some reason, that was looked at as evidence to support the photo. Well, that's not evidence to support anything at all. And I wanted to point out because there was a lot of things that they were pointing out that was in that article. It was in the documentary. Oh, well, they're selling croquet mallets in Las Vegas, so this is support that the Regulators had croquet mallets. Or I've heard, well, it's croquet, right? It's an English game. John Tunstall's English, so of course you connect from A all the way to Z, and he clearly taught them how to play croquet.
Yeah,
it's not how you create a solid link of provenance to Billy the Kid. None of that is relevant, unfortunately. It's just not. It's fun to talk about. I understand. But when, and everyone could say, well, that's not true. But in a way it is. We're just talking and everyone's putting out their opinions of what they see. But again, how can a photo be taken of a building that wasn't there, of men who weren't there? of a wedding celebration, we're going to find out didn't exist at all.
Yeah. Wouldn't it
Anyway,
be cool to find, if this is not legit, a Billy photo, wouldn't it be cool to find the location this was really taken, and maybe that building is still standing somewhere in California,
yeah,
and
yeah,
what a way to disprove.
yeah. I've always personally thought that myself, that most likely the photo was taken probably in the state that he bought it in. I'm not saying that tintypes don't end up in random states. Of course they do. I've come across some in antique stores and whatnot. But one thing I've always noticed about antique stores, collectible stores, pawn shops that have tintypes, you're going to find writings on the back of them in probably like 2 out of every 100. That's the
Right.
point. That's why they're there. Nobody
Yeah.
knew who they were. No family members, descendants to claim them because there's no information on the back.
Colin says, if that lady is writing far side, does that suggest the pick is reversed? And Colin, I just don't know enough about horse riding, etiquette of that time and how
Yeah, I
women
don't
should
know
have sat.
either, but that's a
I have
good
no
question.
idea.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Susan says the women's fashions are true to the late 1870s and 1880s. I was going to say maybe the 1890s, but yeah, it does look dated, acceptably dated to that period,
Right.
clothing wise.
Right. And we understand that, like, at first view, you're kind of hooked, right? Because of the time frame, the way the tintype has the kind of sepia, tint. It's all there. I mean, it's a great photo in general. I mean, you can't lie. I mean, it's a cool photo. I mean, just the way the kid that's supposedly supposed to be the kid, the way he's smirking, the way he's leaning. I've even
He's got some
heard
swagger on that lean, man.
he does, and I get it. It's almost, very similar to the kid's lean in the tintype. I get it. I've also heard an argument too. I heard it from Randy, honestly, the owner of the tintype. I heard it from him in Lincoln, and I hadn't thought about this before. Again, is it a detail that helps establish provenance to Billy? No, but it's interesting. Randy is very convinced, or was very convinced at the time, that the kid, the cardigan wearing sweater kid here with the croquet mallet, that he is armed.
Oh, right.
That he is armed. Now, if you zoom in on him real quickly, Randy swears, because he has zoomed in on this photo, the big blown up photo. Randy says that the kid in that photo, the croquet leaner, it is in his sweater.
The bunched
right there.
up section right here.
The bulk, right. Those are the pistols. I would probably believe that. I mean, I would have to think of what else it could possibly be, but right off the top of your head, considering the time frame, but why cover them? Why are they covered? That's odd in general.
Yeah, I feel like too we would see at least part of a scabbard or belt peek out under that cardigan. I don't know. I don't know what it could be. I don't know if it's just a weird shape of his gut at the time, like a bulky belt. He's got a point. It could be something under there. I don't know if it's a traditional gun belt, if he's wearing a traditional gun belt, if that's what he has under there, or if he's just waistbanding it or what. But
well, he was very convinced. He was very convinced, and I was looking at it up close and personal, and I was kind of like, well, yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from, but you can't prove that. But again, he was taking those kind of details and then automatically stating it as this is a support that this is Billy and that this event took place.
Yeah.
And we kind of went back and forth a little bit in comments on Facebook, and I had to tell him, well, no, it doesn't. That's not proof of anything.
Yeah.
As far as the documentary is concerned, man, I just wish they hadn't have made the claims that they had did, because I feel like the mystery to me would have been still there.
Mm-hmm.
If they hadn't gone as far as they did with that documentary, or what should be called a reality TV show.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's just the way that it is. But I thought, if it's all right with you, because we'll come back next week, but there is one quote that I wanted to read, because it's in everything we've been talking about. It's funny. ironic in just the way people look at things. Okay. This comes from Jeff Aiello, the producer of Billy the Kid New Evidence.
Yeah.
Statistically, when combining all the evidence, there is a 0.62 billion chance the image contains lookalikes. When you have one person match in a photo, that's good. But when you match up 5 people that history records being together in a certain time and place, the odds spiral into probability. As long as we turn to historians and authors who also have their own grand collections for the final say on whether something is real or not, there should always be a shadow of doubt cast on their assessments. We should consider their opinions, but not rely on them alone.
Well, I mean, okay. I mean, I'm gonna really disagree with the 5 people that they resemble.
Yeah,
people.
that was a big thing for him to say, which again,
then,
it really bit them in the ass later.
I wish he would apply the same kind of skepticism towards folks like Gibson.
Yeah,
you know,
more should.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm not opposed to any of that. Look at everything with skepticism, and take the opinion, but also, just try to consider things objectively.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, and everyone had a lot to say at that time. You know what I mean? And I like this one too, because I mean it's powerful. The late Frederick Nolan, author of West of Billy the Kid. Regardless of what is said by paid experts, their conclusions are nothing but conjecture, not fact. No matter how sophisticated the hype that accompanies them, it's still hype and nothing else. The proof they offer is nothing more than wishful thinking, and the historical value of the image is 0.
Yeah.
I think we'll see you next week right here, Forever West Old Time Radio Hour.
Have a good evening.